Hi, Sam.
Hi, I am Rakesh Patel. I'm from his office. Sir will join from his account directly.
Okay, cool.
So let's wait for a couple of minutes. He should be joining.
Hi, Rakesh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. How things over there in the States?
Good, good, good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
How's the response to the book?
Yeah, very well. Very well received by the majority of the people.
Okay, good. I'm going to just check.
Sir, can you reduce light little bit?
Like, I have no control over here.
No, I'm asking Sam sir to do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's better now. Yeah, it's better now.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Sam. How are you doing?
Good. I see Zeeshan, I see Disha, and
Hello.
how are you?
Yes, also here.
Hi, everybody. I'm just trying to figure out how I can get a fancy background like Disha has got.
Oh, I didn't put it. I was quite surprised to see it myself.
I see.
But I guess it works.
Is that a screen or that's your wall?
No, it's one of those virtual background things. I'm using a friend's laptop because the internet at my place I was staying at my house.
And what is all this echo? Disha, is echo from you or what?
I'm not sure. Is it me? I'll try to hold the mic.
Yeah, it's from Disha's.
Okay, I'm just going to. You can hear me twice.
Hi. Oh my God. Look at that. Huh?
Are you shocked, surprised?
I
Oh,
am
please.
shocked. How are you?
Fine. As fine as you can see me.
You look good.
Thank you.
You know, Margaret has been a friend for 40 years.
I know, Sam, but you've forgotten me.
No, I haven't forgotten. I came and stayed with you, remember?
Okay.
Oh my goodness. So good to see you.
I've been going through your book.
Oh, good.
You're setting the agenda for change.
Well, got to do something.
Well, they better start in India.
Oh, I don't know about India. India is a tough nut to crack because of all kinds of, crazy issues. But anyway, so good to see you.
Nice
Nikhil
to
and
see
I
you
talk
too.
on and off, not recently, but we are in touch. But where are you? Are you in Bangalore?
I'm in Bangalore, yeah. Settle down happily.
Thanks.
my
Sorry,
new
all
life.
the young guys. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I'll interrupt now and I'll set the agenda. We're
Please.
just basically going to go for open discussion between Zeeshan, Disha, Sam, and towards the end, for the last 10 minutes, we'll be open for audience questions if there are any.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead with the introductions if that's fine.
Before you start, I have one request. Once this is finished, just send me the recording of this so you know we can upload on
I'll
our
do that.
channel.
I'll do that.
Thank
You
you.
might want to lower your camera a little bit so we can see your entire face, if you don't mind.
Um,
Yeah, that's better.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so
And
basically,
Disha, we need a little more light on your face.
okay,
Okay, I'm
Disha,
gonna try moving around, see what I can do.
yeah, because you are in dark. We don't want you to be in
Okay.
dark.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I had to come to an outdoor space because we had internet issues back home.
Okay, so quick round of introductions. First of all, we are going to be discussing Sam Pitroda's new book, Redesign the World. Do consider buying a copy. It's an excellent book. And we're going to be having three people discussing. First off is Disha Ravi, who's a climate activist, a young climate activist, and she's best known for advocating better policies and governance for climate and the environment sector. And she's the founder of Fridays for Future, which is a wonderful program where young people who care about the environment raise their voices and bring more awareness about it. Second up, we have Zeeshan, who's a foreign affairs columnist and an author of Flying Blind, India's quest for global leadership. He was also with the UN earlier and is a journalist for, he writes for the Deccan Herald and for the Telegraph. And last up is Sam Pitroda, who's a technologist, telecom entrepreneur, and thinker and a policy maker also. He was advisor to the Prime Minister's office at an earlier point of time, and he's the founding commissioner of United Nations Broadband Commission. And yeah, he's written this wonderful book where we all need to reevaluate and reconsider and quite possibly literally redesign the world. So without any further delay, I'll let you guys have a discussion. And towards the end, last 10 minutes, I'll come in if there are any questions from the audience. Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay,
Thank you. Who wants to start?
Thank you, Ravi. Maybe I'll start. Wonderful to be with all of you. Some extremely illustrious people here with me, and obviously looking forward to an enlightening discussion. I mean, when Ravi sent me a copy of, would you like to be called Sam or Dr. Pitroda? How do you go generally?
Sam.
Sam, okay. The first thing that stood out to me was Dr. Manmohan Singh's quote right at the top, where he uses the word audacious. And I was very interested right away in reading this book because the fact of the matter is, young people like myself or like Disha, we feel we've got nothing to lose. And so we go out there with all kinds of radical ideas in the public domain. And so, as Ravi said, I just released my book with Penguin as well earlier this year called Flying Blind, India's Quest for Global Leadership, where I essentially talked about India's foreign policy in rather radical terms as well. But it's extremely rare to find established voices with several years of experience in the public sphere and in policy and governance coming out with something that is not the status quo, that is radical and as Prime Minister Manmohan Singh put it, audacious. And so I immediately was interested in reading this book. And there were a few things that really stood out to me, which I had to scribble down. And I would like Sam to touch upon each of these things when he speaks. Number one thing that stood out to me was that the world we now live in is a world of abundance. We are always hearing about starvation and malnutrition and all of these other things. But statistically, Sam points out that world that we live in today is a world of abundance. It's not a world of scarcity as the one that he grew up in the 50s and 60s. No one should have to really starve. And so if people are starving, then there is a systemic problem there. There is no supply problem. It's more a systemic problem. The other thing that stood out to me, I must say right at the top, my favorite chapter out of the excellent chapters that he has written is the one on the economy, because this, I think, is something that really deserves to be thought about by economists and the academia much more deeply. He points out that the economic measures that we are using today, like the GDP, etc., which measure, I think in his words, financial capital rather than human capital, are probably outdated or at the very least inadequate. He says we must go forward beyond that. And he points out that we've got to try and build a market in some sense that actually provides what is needed rather than what is sells. This particular point really stood out to me from a very personal point of view, to be honest, because Ravi didn't mention it, but before I got into the writing work that I'm doing right now, I actually worked as a policy management consultant. Well, I worked for a management consulting firm, A.T. Kearney, or Kearney as it's now known, as a policy consultant in the Middle East. And it was an extremely well-paid, posh, gig, very capitalist in nature in that sense. But I felt that I was not being, now in hindsight, I've been writing in the media since my consulting career came to an end just before COVID struck. I've been writing for about a couple of years full time in the media. I get paid far less than I was getting paid as a policy or management consultant, but I actually do feel that I'm being much more productive. I find far more meaning in the work that I'm doing right now compared to the work that I was doing before. And that really got me thinking about how the market works and how we value work and how we value output and how we value productivity as an economy or as a global economy, to get paid what is needed rather than what really sells. The other thing that really stood out to me, of the several things that stood out to me, was the discourse on conservation and sustainability. And he talks about this example of a friend of his with a lawnmower, which he used to use every day. And then, at some point in time, he got tired, he wanted to have a rest. And so he got it automated and he was just sitting on the sidelines. And then Sam points out that over a period of time, he started to develop health issues as a result of a sedentary lifestyle, and then had to actually spend money on going to the gym and getting exercise equipment and all of that sort of stuff. So when you had an option to save money in the first place and actually do physical exercise, why did you let that pass and then spend extra money on exercise equipment? The thing that really stands out to me here is that a free market or capitalist economist, or a run-of-the-mill economist, as I would call them today, would point out, we have to try and find ways to boost consumption. So if this guy is actually spending more money during his lifetime on buying exercise equipment, then that is actually creating jobs and employment for somebody who is producing that exercise equipment. And if he did not spend that money, then those people would not be able to live, or rather would not be able to earn their livelihoods as well. So to that point, I think the thing that Sam points out, which is very interesting to me, which I actually want him to elaborate on more, is that technology is now reaching a point where at some point actually work itself might become obsolete. And we might be able to, automate everything with the use of robots and technology. And that would create an economy that creates goods and services and output, and everybody can simply just sit and enjoy their lives, or in some sense, explore facets of their life beyond work and professional career. I found that very interesting. I found that, as I did find many of these points, rather radical and thought-provoking. And I'm really genuinely curious about whether technology really is running in that direction. And if it does, then how do we reorient the economy to build a world where people don't work and yet are able to achieve livelihoods and means of living, and are able to essentially consume whatever they want to consume, pleasure and otherwise. So with that, I would like to actually pause my opening remarks. I'm a foreign affairs, foreign policy columnist, so the chapter on war and conflict was also very much of interest to me. We'll probably circle back to that later. With those two or three questions that I had in mind, probably I will give the floor to Disha, and then we can move to Sam to answer our questions.
Thank you.
Disha, would you like to speak?
I think I'd really like to hear from Sam on what the questions you posed, and then I'd love to put forth what I had in mind.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for all the questions, Zeeshan. And I'm delighted to see on the screen Margaret Alva, my old friend, colleague, and someone I respect a lot, and someone who has made a major contribution in India. And she is still active. So Margaret, welcome to join us. Zeeshan, you have asked lots of questions. It may require an hour. So I would just try to touch upon some of the basic ideas. First of all, I was locked up in quarantine for 18 months, like many of us, in my home in Chicago. And I started thinking about my own journey. And this has been on my mind for quite some time, that I was born just about the time when world was last designed. I was born in 1942, just about 80 years ago. That design which gave birth to UN, World Bank, NATO, WTO, all that stuff, GDP, GNP, was led by US when world was bipolar. I have gone through journey on connectivity, spent 55 years in telecom and IT, and realized that hyperconnectivity is about to change everything. And hyperconnectivity is not about cell phone. It's about big data, analytics, robotics, all kinds of new technologies, satellite imagery, And when I look at what we do today, I find that everything we do today is basically obsolete. I'm an inventor. I have hundreds of patents, and I see world very differently. I see myself as a change agent in my own little way. Okay. And I find that the world design that was created 80 years ago doesn't work anymore. And we need to do something. What is that something we need to do? Is to relook at the design in light of hyperconnectivity. Because in the last 80 years, we have not created one new global institution, not one. How could we do that? Yeah. And lots of things happened in the last 80 years. World got decolonized. China could rise to a level no one ever thought of. Soviet Union fall apart. 9/11 changed American mindset. Technology got democratized and became pervasive. Inequality increased. And finally, COVID-19 told us that we are all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent. What happens in one part of the world affects everybody. Physical borders don't mean much anymore. I live in America, work in India, am concerned about Africa, help Latin America. What is my nationality? What kind of a citizen I am? Okay. So when somebody says, oh, you are anti-national, they are living in the past. They have no idea what they are talking about. Okay. I could be loyal to 10 nations. Ultimately, at Corona crisis, I realized that there are only two things in life that matter: planet and people. There is no third thing. We have really not taken care of our planet, especially in the last 50 years, because of emphasis on consumption. On one hand, I say that we live in an era of abundance. On the other hand, I also know that we cannot go on exploiting the earth the way we have been exploiting. Today, we take 3 billion tons of earth material every year out for our steel, copper, magnesium, lithium, and all these metals. For how many years you can take 3 billion tons out? There is a limit to growth. There was a report done by MIT 50 years ago on limit to growth. But at the same time, I also know that with technology, per acre production of food can go up by 50 times, not 50%, 50 times. So you have this innovations coming in to increase production and give us limitless growth. At the same time, there is so much water, there is so much air, there is so much, forest. And we got to take care of all that. Planet is in pain because we have not taken care of our planet. How did that happen? Because we came up with this great idea of bottled water. Everybody has bottled water. So there are 7 billion bottles every year which go in the ocean, and you created a mountain of plastic as big as Alaska. And we think that is progress. Okay. So planet is in pain. And at the same time, people are in pain because very few people have lots of money and lots of people have nothing to do. We spend $2 trillion on defense every year when we know that we can eliminate hunger for 200 billion a year. So I think our design is very faulty. So when I look at all these G20 experts and G7 leaders meet, they only talk about trade, economy, sometimes immigration, military equipment. They are basically marketing guys. They meet to market their equipment. And everybody looks at the world from their perspective. Nobody looks at it from global perspective. And as a result, you have two designs in the world today. American design, American leadership, superpower. People say in India, oh, we're going to be superpower. How can you be superpower? You can't take care of your hungry. And people get on this bandwagon without understanding what is superpower. And people love it. Development. What development? All kinds of false narratives take over. So today, we do live in age of abundance. But we got to decide what is that we want to produce. For whom do we want to produce? Do we want to produce for people who can afford to buy? Or we want to produce for people who need it? People don't realize that the one t-shirt I wear takes 50 gallons of water to produce. Should I really have 500 t-shirts or 200 t-shirts? Or I can get by with 4 good t-shirts? I think those are the questions we all need to ask. It is not about how much you consume. It is about what you consume, how you consume. So conservation has to be at the core of preserving planet. That doesn't mean you don't buy anything, but that means you buy sensibly. You look at larger picture, and it's not rocket science, but we have created this myth about progress, prosperity. Everybody should have 4 cars. Everybody should have massive house, everybody, like I give an example, I have 700 ties. What do I do with 700 ties? I don't even wear ties anymore. But every time I went to speak somewhere, they gave me a tie as a gift. So there are lots of issues like this that we need to rethink through. And this book is about my own reflections. It's more about Gandhian thought. I grew up in that environment. I was born in British Raj. Transistor was invented after I was born. And I've seen this entire revolution, not on the side, but right in the middle of it. I've seen the transistor revolution. I've seen the computer revolution. I've seen the 4-bit microprocessor, all of that. I've lived it. And I felt that I need to write it up. Because not many young people know many of these things. They have pretty sketchy idea. They get caught up in buzzwords and sound bites. They hear on CNN or on Twitter feed or on some Facebook page. They don't have that depth. And depth comes, unfortunately, from living it, not from reading it. Believe me. Okay. And I felt it is my moral duty for my own grandchildren to document some of these things. Because my grandparents gave me a world which was clean, poor, and simple. I am living for my grandchildren world that is complex, rich, and polluted. And I don't like that. So I think a lot of these things that came to my mind got documented in the book. And the world was designed based on 5 fundamental issues: democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. And I am saying if we want to redesign the world, we got to take democracy to inclusion. No democracies are inclusive today. America is not inclusive. Black Lives Matter is an issue. India is not inclusive. Look, we are trying to build a Hindu Rashtra. I mean, so far away from inclusion, diversity. We got to respect everybody. We got to love everybody. We got to, work together. And then human rights are not good enough. You need to provide human needs. You need to move away from capitalism to new economy. But that is not anti-capitalism. You got to stop focus on consumption and start thinking about conservation, sustainability. And finally, the most important thing is nonviolence. I hope we have reached a point where we can sort our differences across table. And we don't need nuclear armament to fight each other. Another question you ask is about job. I think the idea of job is going to change. I don't need to work 40 hours a week all my life to make living. I could work 10 hours a week to make living and explore and enjoy world and people and environment and animals and birds and bees and all that. Okay. Who came up with this idea that I should work until I'm 60 and then retire? I can work until I'm 100 or 90. I don't have to retire. But I can work on the things I want to work on and not go and stamp something for some factory. That can be done by robot. Then people say, who will pay tax? Robot will pay tax. Okay. So I have in my own way thought through all of this. Not that I have all the answers, but I want new conversation. I want you and Dishas of the world to really ignite this conversation. It is your world that we want to redesign, not my world. My world is over. But how do I get you guys to fire up and not get hung up on, little tweet here and little song there and little gossip here? Okay. I'm afraid that a lot of young people are wasting too much of their time on Facebooks and Twitters and TikToks and all that stuff. Okay. They need to be spending time on environment, education, health, building communities. Okay. That's what they need to do. And I'm worried. I'm worried about the world where a lot of young energy is being wasted on wrong things. I have said many times that best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich who really don't have problems to solve. How do I get this best brain to look at the problems of the poor? And there is a lot of exciting work that needs to be done. And that's why I wrote this book, and I hope you and Disha and others could help me and help all of us take this message forward. I can't do it by myself. If I was a billionaire, people will pay attention. I'm not a billionaire, unfortunately. If I was a famous actor, people will pay attention. I'm not one of those. If I was a great politician, people will pay attention. I'm not those either. I'm just an ordinary guy. and I won't get the hearing. I'm worried, unless and until young people come join me, it'll be difficult to amplify this voice. So thank you, Zeeshan. Disha?
Thank you so much, Sam. I think that was very, very insightful. And even when I was reading the book, I think my favorite was the second half of the book when you came up with new pillars on how to redesign the world. And, I think another favorite
Yeah,
part
your microphone is a problem. There's a lot of echo.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, cool. So I was saying that I like the new 5 pillars that you came up with, and I think one of the most important things that is also on the cover of the book is the fact that you said this isn't an issue of the left or the right; it's an issue of everybody because we're all equally involved in this. And I think obviously one of my favorite chapters was about environment and conservation, and I really enjoyed that. And also noticed about how, since even in the answer to Zeeshan, you mentioned that technology and automation will solve a lot of issues. And I wanted you to elaborate on how technology and automation, while they do solve problems, they do tend to collect excessive data. And what we've seen so far is that whenever big tech has collected a lot of data, they've used it for the demerit of humans rather than the merit of humans, and a lot of people's privacy has been violated. So how are we going to balance equitable justice in the future for people when data at large would be collected with automation? And also, sorry, I have a follow-up question. I have it written down. One of the other things I loved is the fact that you said GDP or the measures we have right now won't work in the future. And I also wanted you to elaborate on what measures would work, because a lot of other countries have also considered alternate measures. And I want your perspective on what would work for India, especially, say, like 5 years from now.
Thank you. Thank you, Disha, for reading the book and being here to interact. We need more young people like you to read the book, analyze, critique, digest, and take necessary steps that they feel are important in their area of expertise. So let's take first your issue on data. I'm not too worried about data because everyone's life is exposed today in one form or the other. When you go out shopping, your credit card print tells you a lot. Your travel ticket tells you a lot. Your movement is known to everybody. Okay, so I'm not really worried about my personal data. Okay, big deal. They can find out Sam Pitroda went here, they went there, I'm 80-year-old. So what can you do with it? Okay. So I think this privacy is overblown a little bit. Okay. All my bank transactions are known. Okay. So I have nothing to hide. Okay. What is that I want to hide? That I'm concerned about my privacy. Okay. Of course, there is a limit to it. Okay. I don't want people to come to my house and collect data. But when I'm out of my house, they can collect all the data on me. They can track me on satellite. Okay. They can track exactly where I go, what I do. That's okay. So let's not worry too much about data security. Some will misuse and some will make a good use of it. It's like knife. You can kill somebody and you can also cut vegetables. Data is like that. Okay, so let's not worry too much. It's fashionable to worry about data and talk about privacy, piracy, all this. Okay. Somebody's going to hack somewhere. Okay, you got to be one step ahead of it. I don't like some of that, but that's okay. 2, you talked about automation, right? I think automation is good in the long run because it will take routine work out of people and will give us free time to think, enjoy, read, write, explore, interact. Why should I do a routine job? If machine can do a routine job, let machine do it. Machine does better than I do. What's wrong with it? Okay. So the idea of job has to change. You can't say, I want a job where I just go stamp everything every day for 8 hours. Okay. And that's the only way I'm going to get money to live. No, you will get money to live from minimum income program. You'll get money to live from the robot that replaced you. That robot will pay tax for you. Okay. And the whole idea will change of economy, job. Today, you spend $200,000 in getting an MBA from some famous colleges. Do you really need to spend $200,000 to get an MBA? How much can you learn on internet by yourself? Do you really need to go to college to learn something? If I want to learn how to make wine, I don't need to go anywhere. Okay. Do I really need to go to a doctor every time something happens? I can go to internet to find out a little more. So today, information has been democratized. And that should empower people. This thing is not a cell phone. It is an instrument to empower me. The question is, how do I get empowered? Do I get empowered by listening to Bollywood songs? Or do I get empowered by listening to, some TikTok jokes? Or do I get empowered with knowledge out there on science and technology, learning about ocean, environment, all that? So it's up to me. Hyperconnectivity is about democratization of information, decentralization of decision-making, and demonetization of services. Hyperconnectivity is also about content, curation, context, local language, local talent. Decentralization is going to be the key to the next big wave in economy. Everything has to be decentralized. If I had an option, I would have 650 different governments in India. One per every district, which is about 2 million people. Every district should have a college. Every district should worry about their water. Every district should worry about their health, hospitals, and not worry about Delhi or state capital.